more knowledge and from the learnings as well from the previous season. We have Jet Yu of Prime Philippines. And up next, we have, I'm not sure if I should call him an athlete or a businessman. He is both in equal parts. From Victor Consuni Development Corporation, Vic Consuni. And up next, we have, I think some of you have experienced the service that he provides out in the road. He is a groundbreaking change maker. He is none other than George Reyeka. And right now, I'd like to call on behalf of Cesar Wee, his representative for today, from Community Developers, WeCom Community Builders, Carson Ochoa. And finally, he could not make it today, but I'd also like to announce his participation in the show. Because of the recent earthquakes, he could not, unfortunately, make it today. We also have, as our fifth investor judge, Carrie Lagdameo from the Mosoland of Davao. So gentlemen, please have a seat. Okay, so you may have noticed that they're all young. We have a very unique season this time around. Not only are they all young, but I think this is a very, very special season in more ways than one. First of all, I'd like to start off with, I guess, our veteran. I could call you a veteran even though you're the youngest among our investor judges. Jet, I think you just turned 30, or you're 29. You're 29 years old, our youngest investor judge on the show. The only millennial, very successful president CEO of Prime Philippines. Jet Yu, you were on board for season 2. You're now with us for season 5 for a very special season that is very, very close to your heart and your expertise. So Jet, as a returning investor, I'd like to find out what are your thoughts coming into this season, which is the Real Estate and Livable Cities edition.
Well, first and foremost, real estate is always part of our interest, and real estate is something that we always want to focus on. And when I heard that you were doing a special edition for real estate, I think I told you that I couldn't say no, because it really is something that we want to focus on. And me, as a returning judge for season 5, I think we want to focus on the property technology sector, to be more specific. The PropTech industry in the Philippines and Southeast Asia is still very young. There's still a lot of room for growth. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there that we can bank on. And as a millennial myself, me and my team, we have at least a deep understanding of the technology space, and we are very keen on exploring and learning also from the entrepreneurs who will be presenting their business models and ideas with us. So. Well, we are very excited for this season 5, and we look forward to meeting new people and working with our co-judges and investors. Hopefully, we can do collaborations together and help these young entrepreneurs start up businesses, help them become successful one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jet. We're very excited to have you back on board as well. And right now, I'd like to talk to Vic Consuni, who I've been trying to chase this guy down for the past year, I think. We've been Facebook friends, but never really met until 2 days ago. I'm not kidding. We only met 2 days ago, formally. I've always been trying to reach out with him, and he's always been around the world racing in God knows what adventure race. and marathon and in different continents. So Vic, 2 days ago, we were in Pink Hot Dogs. We just had a chat. I told you about what we were gonna do this time around for season 5, and I think you're perfect for the show. I mean, the family has been in real estate for a long time. You yourself are a successful entrepreneur in your own right. Your projects are amazing. I'd like to find out, first of all, are you really aware what you got yourself into when I talked to you 2 days ago?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. And also thanks for not mentioning that I think I'm the oldest on this panel now. But you know what? When you mentioned the show to me, it actually struck a chord. Because I'm not sure how many people know, but when I started my real estate company, I started as an entrepreneur without support from the family. So I understand how hard and how unforgiving real estate can be. It is a capital-intensive industry. And even if you do have the capital, sometimes you don't have the means to acquire either the locations or the means to make your ideas come to fruition. So it's tough for it. I think that that it'd be a nice perspective to potential entrepreneurs in this industry to see what it's like to start from the beginning and to build something up. So for me, I'm looking forward to seeing people who have concepts, project ideas that where if every time they try to knock on someone's door, they get shut down. They're told that no, it's not going to work, or no, you're asking for too much money, or maybe it's not that area is not ready for your idea. Maybe you're thinking too advanced. So I want to see fresh ideas. We live in a very challenging country at the moment. We have congestion problems. We have political issues. I mean, it's unique. Whereas many other countries have things in order, we have quite a few challenges, and it makes for quality of life challenges that I would like to see addressed, by a fresh batch of entrepreneurs. And if they can present these ideas and prove to me that we can improve quality of life, right, then I'm all for it. So.
Plus, I think to earn that investment, you're going to have them run a marathon first, right? I think we have
or
that
jump
discussion.
out of an airplane, or we'll find something. I mean, we want people who are up for the challenge.
Okay.
Right. We want people who are not afraid to put it all out there, right? To stand by what they believe in, right? Because it's not like you can just put in a small bunch of capital into this project. You really have to have some guts to make things work in real estate. And unless your core allows you to do that, you're not goal-oriented. It's a tough challenge.
I'm sure it is. And you spoke about quality of life, and the man next to you is someone who has made sure that to some degree that has been addressed here in Metro Manila. Angkas has been, every day I'm on the road, I see one of the Angkas riders with a passenger. It's been phenomenal for the metro. I mean, it is something that has changed. I guess the very way that people get around for something as important as getting from point A to point B within, I guess, less than an hour, if that's even possible with a car, right? George, among the investor judges, you are the one that is slightly different just because you are not out to look for real estate properties. You're actually on the lookout for possible technologies, solutions that will be able to address the livability of cities, not just in Metro Manila, but I guess around the country. Now, coming on board, what were your initial thoughts, and what is it exactly that you're looking for?
Thanks, John, and thanks for inviting me to be an investor judge in the show. I'm very excited to be here. I think, plain and simple now, Angkas has been very successful because it seeks out to solve a problem. And I think first and foremost, that's really what I'm looking for an entrepreneur, is what problem are you trying to solve? Smart cities, livable cities, real estate. You know, the cities, a lot of people don't realize, is actually the flag bearer of a country. You know, if you think of countries, you don't think of, the first thing that pops to your mind is a city, right? You think of Tokyo and its, the advanced technology, or Japan and what it's done to them. Land of the free. You know, you look at New York as the financial center. You look at China as the city of the future. There's Shanghai and Beijing. So a lot of these countries really look at cities to represent their ideals and values. So what is Manila? What is Metro Manila to the rest of the world?
Yorme is Metro Manila right now.
So Metro Manila, unfortunately, one thing that we can all agree on, well, hopefully we haven't branded it yet, but then at the end of the day, it's really congestion. And a lot of people don't realize that congestion is more than just 3.5 billion pesos a day problem, as what Jaika puts it. It's a debilitating issue that strikes and attacks your very, life. Right? Because you make a lot of your decisions now, not because of the merit, but because of traffic. Like imagine you live in Alabang. Who lives in Alabang here? Anyone? Makati? Alabang. Would you ever have a boyfriend or consider a boyfriend that lives in Valenzuela or Quezon City? Right? That's a long distance relationship. You know, if before Angkas, we had this customer who lived in Antipolo and then works in Ortigas. And she travels at 4:30 in the morning, wakes up at 4:30 in the morning to get to work at 9, goes home at 7 p.m. and gets to work gets back home by around 11 p.m. and she's a single mom, and she's an OFW in her own city, right? Not even a country, right? I mean, I know a lot of people move from province to Metro Manila, but these are major issues, and this is. Everybody outside of a city in every country goes to a city to improve their lives, to have a better chance at life, to improve the quality of life. And this is what we need to figure out in Metro Manila. And traffic and congestion is not just a Metro Manila issue, right? When you are thinking of, how close the school is rather than how good the school is to send your children there, you have a problem. When it takes you 2 hours to negotiate 5 kilometers of road, then you know that the city is no more competitive in any way. So and this is not just a Metro Manila issue. This is an issue of every city that is progressive. If you look at Cebu, they're already losing almost 2 billion pesos a day because of the congestion. And we're seeing this in Davao, we're seeing this in Batangas, etc., etc. So basically, there is a way for us to techify or use technology to be able to improve the quality of life in a city. And that's what I'm looking for. But also to demystify the allure and the status of putting up a startup. Putting up a startup is super hard work, very, very hard work. And a lot of the drop-offs, 90% of entrepreneurs drop off at the first chance of trouble. And this is why you need mentors, like the investor judges with me, as well as the mentors that we have at the show to kind of guide them through these series of failures that they will expect. And hopefully we get to impart those ideas and also learn from them and see what innovative and disruptive ideas they have for the show.
Yeah, and we're really excited to get into that because each of you will have your own episodes by which we will essentially get into the life or a day in the life of each of you and really seeing what exactly makes your organization stick. So we will see the success behind the companies. We will see the reasons why you are here, the kind of grit that went into you becoming what you are now. And hopefully the entrepreneurs and the ones who will view the show will be able to pick up from those lessons as well. So thank you, George. And now I'd like to get to Carson. So Carson, you're representing Cesar today. Cesar is your partner in WeCom, WeCommunity. It's a fantastic company that has changed the skyline of San Juan, and also in BGC, you have projects in BGC as well. So I'd like to find out from you. Cesar is right now in Japan with his family. He wanted to make the trip, but the boss said, hold on, you have to be with us. So right now, Carson, I'd like to hear from you. What, in your discussions with Cesar, what are you looking for in the show when you participate as an investor judge?
So thank you, John. Hi, hello, judges. So when Cesar actually pitched this idea first to me, I was a bit apprehensive. First is we're not, I guess, as big as the other guys in this group. But then the more we discussed about it, he said we have to put an emphasis on, similar to what Vic said earlier, this is a company that was not given by our parents to us. It's a company that Cesar actually started in about 10 years ago. And when I joined him around 6 years ago, we were only doing maybe an annual revenue of less than $1 billion. And the more we discussed about it and the more we decided to grow, we encountered several issues. Let's say we were actually the ones doing pitches to banks, to JV partners, to all sorts of suppliers. They were the ones questioning us. You guys wearing your joggers and your jeans and your shirts, you come to our office, you talk about big plans, can you actually pull it off? Well, the good thing here is that we set out a target for 2020, and in 2019 we were able to beat it. And Cesar said, I think that's what we can impart to the aspiring entrepreneurs in this show. It's really that you have to have guts. You have to own your particular business. And so what do we expect from the show? Practically, we can break it down into 3 layers. The first and the ideal situation is actually to find real estate partners who have properties in the areas where we are already in. So that's in San Juan, Quezon City, Davao, and Iloilo. By next year, we'll be expanding to CDO and Bacolod.
Can we break that down specifically for what kind of projects in those areas?
Yeah, so for San Juan, ideally it should be a property of around maybe 2,000 square meters at least. And in Quezon City, where you can do high-rise developments. In provincial areas like Davao and Iloilo, we look for key cities. We just don't look for provincial areas. We want those cities to be independent from Manila. We understand our size. We know that we are not the Ayalas who can create value from a raw land. We are in a way niches, don't know. So we look at cities that are established with complete commercial economic developments already. We come in, we disrupt the market, we try to come up with something different, something that has more value for the same price. So for Davao and Iloilo, when we started entering those markets, our first goal was into horizontal developments. These are house and lot subdivisions. We started with 5, 10 hectares. Now we have 27 in Davao, and we have 40 in Iloilo. And we'll be doing a 55 in CDO next year. If we can find properties of approximately those sizes near the city, within city premises of Davao, that would be good. So that would be the ideal situation. But again, our main focus is really key cities. So if there are pitches of other cities that are also progressive and they have potential properties for house and lot or condo developments, we're also keen in looking at those opportunities. Then lastly, we realized that it's so much more difficult building 300, 400, 500 houses simultaneously versus building one big building at a time, right? So if we can find new technologies in this pitch, how they can improve construction, that would be very ideal for us. And lastly, we would also want to tighten how we do operations. So we're trying to, actually on our own, we're doing our own system for our company. It's a real estate system. But again, we don't have to do everything homegrown. If there are new pitches of technologies that can enhance our business, that would be an ideal situation as well.
Fantastic. And might I add also that for the ones who will be submitting their pitches in terms of the properties, we're really looking for good deals, right? So at the least, it should be, I would say, around 20% below market value. It has to be a compelling offer. Otherwise, we won't even consider you pitching on the show, because for us, it's no use if you try to negotiate for your price to be more than market value just because it's being pitched. It should be the other way around. It should merit us actually getting and considering that property so that we can pitch it to the investors. And so right now, we also have, not yet on the line, but we'll try to get him on the line. We'll have Carrie on a video call from Davao. So as soon as we get him on board, we'll switch to Carrie. But right now, I'd like to open the floor to our friends from the press, from media. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask our investor judges. Do we have a mic? I think we can have a mic.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Eli from eLifestyle Manila. I would just like to ask, by the number of projects that you're looking at, what type of sectors are you looking at? Are you looking at the marginalized sector? Are you looking at the upper class? And are all of these homes that you're providing can be done through the government, like HMF on housing assistance? And what are the things that you can offer as a benefit in terms of other developers that you have your own distinct way of providing the customers?
Would anyone like to take that?
Well, for the most part, I think we represent a pretty wide range in this panel. Me personally, although our specialty is more luxury upper middle developments, there's always the opportunity to present even economic and lower class housing, right? Only because one, there's a requirement in the government that we also provide for this, and two, you have to hit all aspects of society, right? You can't just focus on one. So I think if I speak for everybody, we'd like to see a range of ideas, of projects and concepts, not necessarily what's just in our specific field.
So in our case, we specialize on the middle income market. So that's around 2 million to around 5 million. We're not that keen on developing yet socialized housing, which is 450 and below. At 2 million to 400, practically you cover an individual who earns, let's say a couple that earns 25,000 a month would be able to afford a 2 million package. So we are keen in targeting that. So his second question was, what value added do you put in? So we try to create values depending on the particular market that we're targeting. For example, we have this project in Mandaluyong. So it's similar to what Vic is doing. It's a fringe city development. So it caters people who work on Makati but who can't actually afford buying any property within Makati. So they're forced to go to Cavite, Bulacan, Dipolo to buy their properties, right? So we gave them an option, a halfway home, without really compromising the size. Because you can see other developers doing a halfway home concept that's around 13, 14 square meters. which is for me, it's quite small. So we're doing around 25 without really compromising too much on the price. So we started doing it, selling at around 2 million to 2.5 million. And we understood that the market that we're serving is more of the millennial or the young crowd. So we tried to pattern it to what they need. So all our units for that particular project are already smart home enabled. So meaning these people who will be leaving their offices at maybe 6:30, will get home at 7 plus minus, can actually turn on their aircon, control their lights when they want to turn it on and off. If they have visitors, they can actually see them through their phone because there's a camera at the door. So those things were custom fit for that particular market. So it really depends on where we will go, right? But primarily we would want to stay within that 2 to 5 million market. What other features we would add would really depend on what we think and based on our survey, what those clients actually need.
So just to add to, hello, can we have the mic, please?
Just to further add to that, I think for our group, we have a subsidiary company with a partnership for a commercial retail development in Clark. We are also open to next wave cities. Metro Manila land prices have gone up already, and we think that the competition and the opportunities might not be as many compared to greater Metro Manila area. So we are looking at Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Pampanga, Bulacan, even as far as Tarlac. So in terms of what specific sector we are looking at, whether that be residential, commercial, industrial, office, I think it depends if there's an opportunity that we can look at. So we would be very much willing to study and hear the proposals of the potential entrepreneurs who will pitch their ideas.
I like when you mentioned competition because I'm seeing later on, I don't know if you're actually going to be competing against each other, but what I'd like to see personally is for some of the developments to be co-developments. I don't know, it might happen on the show, but that's going to be something interesting if there would be a co-development by 2 or 3 of you. So we'll have to see about that. I hope that happens. Do we have other questions?
Just to add, for subdivisions, there's a provision to have untapped or like a recreational area for people. For high-rise, we're talking about smart homes, already connected homes. What's your concept in putting, that recreational area in high-rise? Are you putting up a mini forest in the rooftop or a mini park? How do you would like to comply giving back to environmental so?
So I think that's a timely question because we have a upcoming project close to the La Mesa Eco Park. So I think it's around 10 minutes away from Eco Park. So the concept of the project is to actually, how can we interact or co-interact with the Eco Park? So what we did was we allocated 2 floors of the projected 15-story development for amenities. So the second floor, or the podium level, would be for your typical amenities that normal developments offer, which would be a pool, you have your function rooms, commercial areas, etc. But then on the roof deck, what we decided was we did 2 buildings, but we interconnected those 2 buildings, and we made it into a running backwalk. So you have a view of the Eco Park as you run within the city. Because sometimes, I'm not the one to say that I exercise a lot given my size. So I hardly exercise, but the last thing I really want to do is spend like an hour inside a small room running on the treadmill and just sweating and doing exercise by myself for an hour. So I would rather prefer running along a running path that allows you to see the view of the Mesa Eco Park, then the city. So that's what we incorporated. Then we're also in talks with them actually to rehabilitate a section of La Mesa Park. It will be like a co-branding for us. So for example, let's say a lot of people do biking there, or they have a picnic area. So we wanted them to identify a particular area that we community will be rehabilitating, and whenever they launch it, it will be co-branded with our project, which is 10 minutes away from the Eco Park.
Any more questions?
Hi, I'm John from Good News Manila. My question is for John. I understand that this is the first time that the final pitch chose a certain sector, which is real property, compared to the previous season. So my first question is, what prompted the show to do something specific, focused? And second question is, why real estate in contrast with other sectors? What was the reason behind it?
Okay, so as a TV production company, our longest running show is Philippine Realty TV. That's now on its 17th season. It's been on ANC for the longest time. Right now we're on CNN. And the background, it has been real estate for a long time. Personally, I wrote the book, Project First Home, How to Build a Home from Scratch from the Ground Up in the Philippine setting. So, and also, having been in the real estate sector, as a producer and as an entrepreneur, I've been in the space for quite a while. We also have a brokerage. I'm a licensed broker as well. And all these things really was done so that we could participate in the real estate sector. So even the TV show Philippine Realty TV is actually a tool for us to be able to not just document, not just showcase projects, but to actually get involved in being developers ourselves, because we also build boutique projects of our own. Not as big as these guys, but we do participate in the industry as well. And so that's the reason why we have right now the real estate edition, because we want to be able to, utilize our expertise and our influence in the industry, and be able to see how we can generate business for a great number of landowners and project proponents that otherwise would have a difficult time getting this kind of a break, because pitching your property or project on the show is so far from just pitching it, let's say, to someone who's a prospective buyer. If you're pitching it on the show, you're pitching it to millions of viewers from the Philippines and around the world who will be seeing that project. So if you can just imagine, if you're pitching, let's say, a unique master plan development somewhere in the fringes of the city, imagine the number of people who will be able to hear that pitch beyond the investors that we have here. So it's really a way for you to be able to get your project or property out there. And hopefully, if you do not land a deal on the show, it really sets you up for, a higher success rate in terms of getting that project done or acquired in the future. So real estate is really a very important aspect of what we do, and that's why we decided this season to come up with the real estate edition. But apart from this, I'd also like to say that by next year, so in terms of our timeline, by next summer, it moves back to the regular season. But by October next year, we are going to be launching the final pitch ASEAN. So by next year, it's going to be an international show, and we are targeting to film it in Singapore, where we will be inviting approximately 5 or 6 investors from different ASEAN countries to be able to hear out pitches from ASEAN entrepreneurs, not just from the Philippines. So it's going to be a global show that we hope to export, globally license it, eventually use it as a platform, not just for our nation building, but really building the kind of trade that you would expect to have within the ASEAN region. So it kind of speeds up that process, because we're all trying to figure out how we can work with our neighbors. And this platform is going to be a good, jump-off point to be able to execute that kind of cooperation, co-opetition, whatever you might want to call it, with our neighbors here in ASEAN.
All right. Thank you and congrats.
Okay, and looks like I think we have our friend from Davao who is right now. Hi, Carrie. Can you hear us?
Hey, John.
Hey, Carrie. Okay, so Carrie, we're at the press conference right now, so I'd like to hear from you exactly your reasons for coming out on the Final Pitch Season 5. We've been talking for a while. I actually invited you to join us on a previous season, but I think this time you couldn't resist this edition in particular. I know you have a lot of plans in Davao, so talk to us about what it is that you're looking for as you participate in this season of the Final Pitch.
Sure. First of all, I apologize deeply again for not being able to be there in person. I had really wanted to, but under the circumstances, had to take care of some things here in light of what transpired yesterday. But again, also thank you for asking me to be on the show once again. And you're right. This time, since it's a real estate edition, I'd love the. I guess how you're doing the show this time around. So I was much more than happy to join you guys this time. For us, I mean, we're a full-scale real estate developer here in Mindanao. We're involved in several kinds of real estate. So from residential, office development, commercial developments, hotels, and even industrial parks, and now mixed-use properties. So I think one thing that we're looking at across all of our different projects is really how to add value to our projects and to make things more efficient. So this can be in terms of building methodologies, and whether it's building homes, building buildings, or even doing land development better. So those are things that really interest us, and we like listening to innovative technologies, things that are new building materials, especially as they relate to sustainability. So that's kind of one of the main reasons that interested me in being on the show. And I think even technologies as they relate to making cities smarter. So integrating new technologies into our master plan developments here, especially in the mixed-use projects. Not a lot of people are doing that here yet. And it's one thing that we also like to do as the Mosaland is to really try to find or try to be the innovator here in the Davao region. I think, and I think one last item would probably be, although it's not our #1 priority, is to look for JV partners in terms of land. But we always say, why not? If there's something that's interesting, especially if it's here in the Davao region or even in other parts of Mindanao, we're always willing to listen and see, what kind of opportunities are out there.
Okay, that's surprising for me to hear, Gary, because I've always assumed that you don't need any more land. You have a lot of it in Davao. Your family has a lot of it, but it's surprising to hear that you're open to JV projects as well.
I guess you can never have enough, and it really depends on what the opportunity is. I mean, there could be something better out there. So we're always open.
That's great to hear, Gary, and that's right. Land is a finite resource, and pretty much, well, at least here in Metro Manila, it's a limited option. But in Davao, I think there are still a lot of opportunities for you. So I'd like to ask also, in addition to that, you spoke about methodologies. Anything that you're interested in particular? Because when you say methodologies, from a structural point of view, there have been a lot of technologies that we've seen through the years in terms of the kinds of, let's say, for example, walls, materials, etc. Are you looking for anything in particular that you haven't seen before?
Right now, I would say, I guess, materials and methodologies that would allow us to build houses and even buildings faster, stronger, more efficient. And you're right, there are existing methodologies out there. I mean, it's no secret, but I guess we're constantly seeing newer ones come into the market. And we've adapted some of ours. We've gotten better over the years, but like I said, I think we can always do better. Building fast and efficient is always good for the developer, but if you can do it while adding value to your homeowners or to your tenants, meaning It could be a stronger home, or it can be a more now earthquake resilient building. So I think those things are very relevant nowadays, and also as they relate to being more environmentally friendly, that's something that's very important to us as well.
Right. Okay, so we'd like to open the floor to any of our media friends who would like to ask. Carrie, anything? Yes.
For the judges, since the final pitch season 5 will focus more on real estate, what is your outlook for the property market next year or until the next 5 to 10 years? Especially in times of there is an uncertainty concerning the POGO sector. And for Angkas, apart from traffic, what other problems do you think need to be solved in key cities?
Sorry, excuse me, I have to apologize. I couldn't hear you very clearly.
Okay, so the question centered on the outlook that you have for the next perhaps 5 to 10 years, and also pertaining to the volatility that the POGO situation has presented to the real estate sector now. What are your, apprehensions or plans that basically will address that impending issue?
Okay. Well, I guess I can answer. I suppose it's as it relates to Davao. We still see a couple of years of good growth in the real estate sector. We believe that we're still on the way up. I think the real estate sector really started to grow very quickly over within the last 10 years. And over the last couple of years, then it kind of catapulted, of course, with a lot of interest in the Davao region. But for us personally, when we look at the demographics of Davao, Davao has been growing over 8% for the last couple of years. You have a highly educated workforce. There's been a lot of wealth creation over the last few years. So we see that there's over the next 5 years, we're still going to have a good, robust real estate sector in Davao. So we hope our projections are right. Of course, we don't have the crystal ball, but so far things are looking good. In terms of POGOs, well, for us, there haven't been any major POGOs in Davao City. None that we know of, at least. Most of the office space that is being taken up is still by the BPO sector. And at least for the current BPO players that are here in the region or in Davao City, they continue to look for office space to grow their businesses. So we're still happy about that. And the outlook, at least here, is that will continue to grow as well over the next couple of years.
Okay, so for the rest of our real estate players, before we get to George, your outlook for the coming years.
Well, regarding the uncertainty, I think even 5 years, 10 years ago, while the real estate in the Philippines has been continuously rising, there's always been the uncertainty. I remember way back 2014, there were news that by 2015, the Philippine real estate would have oversupply of condominiums, residential condominiums. And yet now, here we are, 2019, and we still continue to see the growth of real estate condominiums all over Metro Manila, and now it's also spreading outside Metro Manila. So at least on our end, we have our own research team that dedicates themselves. Quarterly, they get themselves updated with the supply and the upcoming demand. I think within the next couple of years, we still see a bright spot in the real estate industry all across different sectors, from residential, office, industrial, and the retail sector. So basically, what's driving the real estate growth nowadays is the growing middle class population in the Philippines, and we've been getting a lot of foreigners migrating and working now in the Philippines. And since the BPOs are continuously expanding, a lot of the OFWs are starting to return back home and start their career here in the Philippines after many years. So there's a lot of opportunities definitely, and we don't see any signs of slowing down within a couple of years, despite that just recently, this morning, Hong Kong just announced that they are already entering the recession finally, and just a couple of months ago, Singapore announced that they are already in recession. Malaysia has been in recession for 4 years, but I think Philippines remain resilient so far. And just a couple of days ago, last week, I was in Davao, and I met with different landlords, and they all have the same sentiment that the real estate remains strong in Davao, and the occupancy remains high across different sectors. So with regards to the POGO, which is quite a hot topic right now in the Philippines, I can speak on our own personal experience. The POGO, Philippine Offshore Gaming Operators, operating all over the Philippines, or in particular Metro Manila mostly. I think our outlook there is that we see that at least by 2020, they will continuously expand within Metro Manila. And in fact, this year they have already outpaced the number of office spaces demand, usually from BPOs. So all over, let's say, you look at Quezon City in particular, there's already about a little bit over 100,000 square meters taken up by POGOs, but not a lot of people know about that. And there's only 1 million square meters of office spaces in Quezon City, so that's already 10%. So we think that at least on the real estate side, we think that it is healthy, it is doing, it's contributing positively for real estate developers, investors, and practitioners. So it has helped drive the retail, the office space, and residential prices a bit higher. And for developers, investors like us, I think it's a good sign, and it's a good thing. And I think again, on our personal experience, it's still manageable. It's not something that is out of control. It's we think that all the uncertainty with regards to the POGO has just something to do with the regulations, which are now being strictly regulated and being monitored, which is a positive sign.
Okay. Thank you, Jet.
I mean, fundamentally speaking, as far as the industry is concerned, everybody here and everybody who's in this industry can explain, has a certain outlook of how the POGOs affect real estate and where the prices are going and everything. We have a bit of a unique perspective on this because we are a primary home developer, which means we cater locals. We're not big on people who buy our units for investment purposes. We prefer that the people who buy our units actually live there. And so we have a unique perspective because, as it turns out, when you put into consideration the influx of OFWs coming back home, the traffic congestion, basically you have work overtime. We call it lifestyle undertime. When you get stuck in traffic for 4 hours of your day, you're not getting paid for that. It's not overtime, right? It's literally taking out of your lifestyle. And what we found is that because we have so many challenges, there are also so many opportunities to be had, right? You just have to find them. So whether or not the economy as a whole is doing well or not doing so well, whether we're looking at 5 years or 10 years, the point is that there's a lot of opportunity in this industry specifically, stratified opportunity, that I think that with the right mindset, thinking out of the box, we can all take advantage of, to the benefit of the people who live in our developments or work in our developments or whatnot. So me personally, I think it's a very hopeful thing, and I hope that that we can overcome these challenges.
So speaking of opportunity, if I could go to George now. Did you want to? Okay.
Just share a few points on this. Actually, they've been saying for quite some time that there has been a glut in real estate development. But actually, it's a lazy way of looking at things. You have to break it down per segment. If you look at the socialized housing, there's actually a deficit. If you break down the market now to the mid-market, it really depends on which area you want to play at. So there are areas, true, that may be oversaturated already, but there are still a lot of unserved market. Similar to what Vic said earlier, you have to look at the opportunities available, and you can find a particular product that caters to a niche market that no one's serving. I think rather than looking at the outlook of real estate, what's forgotten here is really the value of funding. Because if you look at the past real estate crisis we had, it's not really buyers not buying. It's actually the funding or the financing institutions that they stopped lending to people. They stopped lending to the developers. They stopped lending to the end users. The demand is always there. It's just how would those people pay for the units that they acquired. Then similar to Vic's situation, we veer away from, for no prejudice, but we veer away from the POGO market. We cater primarily to end users, Filipinos, rather than giving the first dibs to foreigners. We want to give first dibs to the locals. And the negative side of the POGO, as far as a developer like me is concerned, sometimes you get priced out of the market. You can't buy properties anymore in particular areas, whether it be a raw land or a piece of land you can develop, or an end product like a condominium unit, because the prices have gone so high because of demand coming from the POGO market.
So George, we were talking about opportunities. You're the local Gojek, essentially. What other opportunities are you looking at?
Well, I think, just dovetailing from the discussion, the real estate side. We don't just look at it from a real estate perspective, although I still think that Philippines is still one of the most undervalued in terms of the real estate space, in reference to our neighbors, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, and of course Hong Kong, with astronomical prices already. We also have a very healthy OFW industry in terms of remittances, so that continuously fuels a lot of the construction boom, the real estate, and also expenditure. BPO is also very strong, and 40% of that is salaries. And this goes into the millennials buying a lot of these properties. But I think if you look at it from Victor and the rest of the judges, investors also said it and touched on it a bit, is the bubble happens when you have more speculation than actual users. And I think a lot of the people buying real estate live in it in the Philippines. So that's a very, very good sign. But from Angkas's perspective, it's not just about real estate, but really livable cities. And in the Philippines, there is now this development outside of Metro Manila. And I think one of the good things and bad things about a progressive city is the threat of congestion. Good thing because it is progressing. A lot of people are going into the cities and there's a lot of activity there. The bad thing is that you need to be able to account for the congestion. So as a technology provider in a livable city space, how do we now enhance the quality of life? From the e-commerce perspective, from the logistics perspective, business and end user, B2B and B2C. I'm wearing two hats actually. So one is Angkas and another one is a fund. So I represent a fund in the Philippines that originates in Japan. It's called Infinity Ventures Fund. We're on our fourth fund. It's been operating for about 12 years. Our fourth fund is about $300 million US. Focusing primarily on 4 sectors in technology. So that's fintech, logistics and e-commerce, also digital media in mobile devices. So there's a lot of different platforms that you can develop as ancillary services to, smart, not just smart, but also livable cities. So when you're in congestion, what do? Right on your phone? Can you order a pizza to get to your house? Can you turn on your aircon so that when you get there it's cold? Can you pre-program Netflix? So that you have a series of shows that you can watch when you get home. So there's a lot of opportunities from the platform space. Also a lot of opportunities on the people in the cities. We are in the era of digital platforms. You have Lazada, you have Shopee providing e-commerce to people that do not have to have a side job or do not have to go out to the office to work, or they can do it from the comfort of their own homes. So there's a lot of opportunities. Like what Vic said earlier, Philippines is, we're rich in problems and challenges, and for me that is the best place to be in, because there are a lot of problems that you can solve, and because you're able to solve these problems, there's a huge and lucrative opportunity that's ahead of you. And hopefully we get to solve some of these problems with Final Pitch.
I'm sure we will. That's why we have a lot of foreign investors who are here right now, trying to see if they can ride on the opportunities that are presented by the many problems that we have in the country. Do we have one more question? I think we have time for one more. So, okay.
Recently, the disasters or the tragedy or the typhoons are hitting Mindanao parts. Are you considering the safety and being hit by typhoon or earthquake? Are these livable homes earthquake proof already and typhoon proof and all of the stuff? I hope it's part of your one of the called baselines in terms of producing homes.
Right, so I'd like to ask that question to Carrie. So that hits very close to home. Are you still there? I think, Carrie? Can you hear us, Carrie? Okay. Carrie, can you hear us? Okay, I think there's a lag. So internet is a very big opportunity, definitely. And before we get to Carrie, so back here, in terms of your projects, what are the things that you have been implementing in terms of, let's say very, very, very important right now, earthquakes in your projects?
How would you like that answered? Would you like that answered from the technical point of view or from the practical point of view? Both. Okay. Our projects are primarily neighborhoods, which means we build houses on lots and we sell them together. So any engineer worth their salt will design their house to be strong enough to sustain what's the strongest earthquake we'd expect in the next 50 years, right? And us as a developers pretty much do the same thing. So the Philippine code says that you're supposed to have somewhere around 70 to 80 kilograms of steel per cubic meter of concrete. This is kind of like the more boring, mundane stuff. We actually build our homes to carry up to about 160 kilograms of steel inside per cubic meter of concrete. So if you really think about it, you're almost 3 times the amount of steel, right, in these houses. And the reason we do that is because we expect small tremors all the time, right? And on the practical side, we don't want to go back to the houses or to correct tiny little cracks here and there. It's a nightmare to do that, and it's a quality control issue, and it destroys your brand. So we make sure that our houses are built quite strong. We put our foundations to carry 4 stories, even if the house is only built to 2 or 3, right? So we have large factors of safety, more than what you would have in a normal typical development. And the reason we do that is because it's from a structural point, from a construction point of view, the cost increase of the construction component is very small, but the value add to the end buyer, the family that lives there, who's going to live there potentially for 2, 3 generations, these guys will appreciate that value because they won't have a house that's constantly cracking or breaking every time there's a minor tremor or a major earthquake. And I think in the last major earthquake we had here, we really felt. I'm happy to say that we had hardly any cracks and any issues with our structural. But this is not, it's not a matter of just that. The point is the value add, right? You take what would be considered a negative that of building in this region or in this country, right? And you turn it into a positive, for your end users, and that's how you basically hopefully build a better brand.
Yeah. So Carrie, can you hear us now? Carrie.
I can hear you guys now. Yeah.
Okay. So the question was, in terms of your projects, what are the measures that you're currently taking to prevent, say, right now, an earthquake, a big earthquake just hit you? What are the measures that you're taking as a developer in terms of protecting the projects that you build?
Sure. I mean, obviously a very relevant question today. Over the last 2 days, we had to go around all of the projects and see that everything was structurally sound. Thankfully, I mean, we do follow building code. Building code will dictate that you have to build your home or your building to a certain degree that can withstand earthquakes to a certain degree. So we were happy to see that things were followed, even for the new construction. But yeah, I mean, I think even without these incidents happening, I mean, we owe it to our homeowners and to our office tenants that you build something that they can rely on for years to come. And I had a discussion with one of our contractors this morning, and I mean, he said that they do overbuild, and we witnessed it ourselves. So I mean, whether it's earthquake or any kind of disaster, I mean, we do have to take those things into consideration. So happy to see that everything is still okay. And one thing is, I guess we just wish that all developers would follow that. Without naming names, I think there are some out there that don't really follow things to the T, which is kind of unfortunate.
Okay. So the real estate geek in me is really excited for the discussions that will be happening on the show, just because it's relevant to all of us who live in homes in one way or another. And I think what will happen with the season is going to be very interesting for a lot of people who are looking at opportunities. I think that's the thing that this opens up in terms of the entrepreneurs, the property owners that will be pitching. What are the opportunities out there that you can get into if you're very creative? I think that's something that I'm expecting for a lot of the pitches to be. I think on the technical side, we're very well represented in the panel. So I'm very interested to see how the ones who will pitch will fare against the very tough, I'm sure, questions that you will have for them. And with that, I think we've run out of time. And I'd like to thank you, Gary, for joining us all the way from Davao. Yes.
Yeah, thank you again, and sorry that I couldn't be there in person. But I look forward to being on the show and working with all of you.
Yes, we'll see you back here, and be safe, Gary. Thank you.
Thanks so much.